Welcome back to the show. It is Christine Jewell, and we are on the Breaking Chains podcast. Today, I am joined by John Gallagher. I'm going to introduce him here in a second, but I love to bring you guys these interviews with other leaders who are zigging when everybody else is zagging, who are just really leading with faith in the marketplace, supporting other industry leaders. So, John is the founder and CEO of Growing Champions coaching and consulting company. He has over 25 years of expertise and experience in leadership and lean. He is widely regarded by CEOs and their executive teams, consulting dozens of renowned companies. I won't even begin to list them because there's so many. John, I'll let you do that. But he really helps these leaders and their organizations go from mediocrity and underperformance to experiencing uncommon impact through his 7-step methodology. So I thought this was also interesting to note that his personal transformation journey to health was documented in Men's Health magazine. Very cool. Welcome, John, the host of the Uncommon Leader podcast. Welcome to the show.
Christine, it's great to be with you on your show today. I'm excited about our conversation. Looking forward to it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yay. Okay. Awesome. Well, John and I got introduced, I think originally through Mark, and it's just so awesome that when you start getting connected in great groups, through great coaching, through great mentoring, you just meet other amazing humans. So I just want to drop that in there for those of you listening, if you're not already connected, because relationships are really where it's at. Relationships are what opens doors, eh?
Absolutely. I mean, you think about one of the things I've said, and I can't remember the person I talked with. They said, life is relationships. The rest is just a bunch of details that we talk about. So, I mean, it really is.
So good. And we're probably going to unpack more of the power of relationships because that's a huge topic on this show. But I would love to know, you are the host of the Uncommon Leader podcast. So what is your definition? Let's just start there, first of all, before I jump into your story. What is John's definition of an uncommon leader?
Christine, again, thank you for the opportunity to chat with you today. And jumping right into that is really cool. I mean, I think back on about 3 years ago when I was looking to name that podcast, and I had been reading a devotional by Tony Dungy, and really it made it easy to look at the front of that, and that was the uncommon life in terms of what was happening. And ultimately, it was about doing common things in an extraordinary way. One of the things that's kind of fun in my bio, that it's at the very end of the bio that I talk about, that I do quote in my free time, is returning shopping carts to the corral from the grocery store parking lot, because it's one of those things that's very simple, that from a behavioral standpoint, things that might just drive us crazy, but what do we get a chance to really do something about that and make a difference, and just take that cart back to the corral for somebody who left it. Maybe they couldn't make it happen. It's quite fun as we talk about that, but that uncommon component is just that little bit of extra effort. Ed Milet talks about it as just one more repetition, one more page in the book that you need to read, and to really stay different, to be different in the marketplace, in our homes, in our communities. It takes a little bit of extra effort, and that's that. Again, it's not doing anything out of the ordinary. It's just doing those ordinary things in an extraordinary way.
Yes, I love that. I wrote that down. Uncommon leader equals uncommon life, but it's not about doing these massive leaps. It's about the small things that we do every day and doing them in extraordinary. It reminds me of serve well the season you're in. We're always wanting that next big thing, the next big promotion, the next big opportunity. But I think God is always looking at our character of how are we doing it now? Are we walking around that shopping mall just judging everybody who left their carts, because I have done that, right? Or are we going to take that moment and go, you know what? I'm going to assume the best. It's the same thing as that person that's cutting you off, or your employee who's probably having a bad
That's right.
day.
Absolutely. No, it is that cutting somebody off in traffic and giving someone the benefit of the doubt. At some point, it does become a pet peeve, and so that's part of it. I think it's something that, in essence, you get a little bit discontent with the status quo, and you're like, I'm just gonna do it different.
Yeah.
And have people observe that. You mentioned the season to serve. Absolutely. Where you are in that season, are you doing the best that you can?
Yes, that has been such a powerful lesson for me, as I've, often found myself in the space of impatience, wrestling with God, like, give me the next, why am I still here waiting? And he's like, because you're grumbling, because you are complaining. You are not seeing what I've got you. Okay, let's jump into your backstory a little bit. Give us a little bit. You have some cool stuff that you've been through. Obviously, you've been at this for 25 years. You had this health I want to hear about the health transformational
Okay.
journey as well, because obviously coming from the holistic health and performance background, I know how important that is to your capacity to lead well. But just whatever is really speaking into your heart right now, give us a little bit of John's backstory. What brought you to where you are today and really positioned you for such a time as this?
Well, the story again, and I won't take you all the way back to those days in West Virginia, but I was raised in West Virginia. I'm a mechanical engineering student that graduated, and early on in my journey, there were opportunities for leadership that, frankly, I didn't even know how to spell leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was a catalyst for me, both in that leadership transformation and in that lean journey, I was given a leadership opportunity over a large facility, a couple hundred people, responsibility wise. Uh, Really before I deserved to be given that. So it was an opportunity I had to really learn, and I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
how to learn. As I said, I didn't know how to spell leadership, but I had a mentor bring a book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership
So
by
good.
John Maxwell, give it to me as a gift, and then he read, basically reviewed every chapter of that book with me, and he and I developed on that journey, and I was hooked. 1998, I was hooked on the value of personal growth. Again, I didn't understand what that meant. If I got out of college and I knew there was a certain dollar amount I wanted to make as a salary, and I would have made it as an individual, and I didn't think about reading more books that I got out of college. But I
Mm-hmm.
tell you, that was transformational for me. And then as I go along in that journey, all those things kind of started to add up, even in my faith journey as well, and becoming a better man, a better husband, a better father. At the time, I had two young children, or actually one at that time, 98,
Yeah.
one young child and one on the way. And so all those things started to really change for me.
Mm.
Uh, it resulted in moving forward, and I would say the ultimate pinnacle was a performance review I got back in 2003. I was sitting in, it was again another promotional opportunity, sitting with my boss in this big conference room with a glass surrounding it and all the people wandering around. And I don't know if you've had one of these performance reviews or not, if you've kind of been in the neighborhood of this, but it was one of those truthful performance reviews. I was in a role that it was a little bit out above my skis, and
Yep.
I got an unsatisfactory performance review, and
Mm.
there was nothing in that review that wasn't true. There was nothing in that review that wasn't delivered from a love standpoint from that boss.
Yeah.
And I just sat there. I was almost kind of like paralyzed. And at this point in my career, about 20 years ago, I was sitting there and I just couldn't respond. He asked me how I felt, and I couldn't respond to anything. And all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden, these two alligator tears start rolling down my cheeks. I'm the president of a multi-million-dollar company, and I cry in my performance review. And it was that point in time where I said, I need help.
Yeah.
And I had just heard a CD coming out of a conference about CD. That was the time. We still had compact discs that we listened to
Mm-hmm.
rather than streaming that stuff. But talked about this thing about executive coaching, which I had never heard of myself. And I said, I'd
Yeah.
like to see about getting a coach. And I tell you, I went through the company that I trained with, got a coach, took me through the life planning process, more than just the business planning
Yep.
process, but the life planning process that ultimately, I think, set me on the path to really seeing that coaching was my strength, that
Mm-hmm.
consulting and in the lean
Mm-hmm.
transformation space was something that I truly enjoyed as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it moved me down the path to where I was today after being consulting with a large organization for almost 15 years. And then COVID, and like many cutbacks that happen, I had the chance to start on my own. God gave me the runway to do that. I'd been thinking about it for 5 or 6 years, and finally got the boot that I needed to get that started. And I've been running Growing Champions now for about 4 years. And ultimately, for me, it's about inspiring, encouraging, and equipping others to be successful in business and life, and that both are possible as you go through that journey. And that's where
Mm.
we get ultimately to today, and
Yeah.
maybe those 7 steps as well.
Well, before we jump into the 7 steps, okay, there's so much stuff that you just said there that I want to
Yeah, yeah, I
go
know.
back and unpack always, because I think when we share our stories, I know when we share our stories, people see themselves in your story. People remember being at these intersections of having these reviews. I was talking to a client not long ago that got exactly one of those reviews, and it's like you said, the shoes are bigger and the skis are longer, and you're going, ugh. So a couple of things. First of all, I want to say that book that you mentioned, John Maxwell, 21 Laws of Irrefutable Leadership, great book. Was recommending
Hmm.
that the other day to somebody. talking about the law of empowerment, empowering other people. So you guys make sure we'll drop the link to that. That was good. I love that it was a catalyst for you, because I remember sitting in my season of feeling like the shoes were bigger and reading Thinking for a Change, which
Mm.
that was also a John
Yes,
Maxwell
John
book.
Maxwell book, absolutely.
He's like got some amazing books. So just shout out to
Oh,
John
just
Maxwell.
that whole shelf right there, plus the picture right there. That's me and John Maxwell at
Oh
his
my
house in
gosh.
2001. Yep.
So good. I got it. Okay. So we're just like giving a shout out where shout outs are due, because I've heard him speak at Entree Leadership. Just really great. So if those of you don't know where to start, it's easy to start with books, easy to start with podcasts. Like there's so much
Mm-hmm.
free content out there, or minimal, that if you just start to chew on it and integrate it, like God will meet you where you're at. So I love that. Wanted to shout that out. I also love the fact that you were brought into these opportunities like that were bigger than you. And as you were talking, I really kind of feel like, the hand of God, like favor was upon you, like
Mm-hmm.
preparing you, and that you leaned in before you destroyed the whole thing. Because sometimes we see people that their ego gets in the way or pride gets in the way. And I'm sure you see this, where leaders are not willing to go, okay, give me that book, give me a mentor, give me a coach. Like, and it's like this slow path to destruction that their teams burn down. And I do believe that when we're supposed to have shoes that are bigger than us. That's why we have to partner with God. We have those skis, and it's like, okay, I need people, the right people, and I need to go with God. I just wanted you to touch on that for a minute, because you leaned in. And I think that this is a moment where maybe there's a lot of leaders out there that are like, I feel really, you know, either too confident, overconfident for the
Mm-hmm.
position I'm in, and they're delusional, or they feel totally inadequate for the position they're in.
Well, it started out for me prior to that journey, certainly on the pride side, that I didn't need
Yeah.
help early in my career, especially even as a young leader in that position. Again, I thought I
Mm-hmm.
had to figure it all out on my
Mm-hmm.
own.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciated the feedback that I got. Having said that, it's funny because it still sits with me today. The prayer of Jabez is taped to my laptop because I'm
Mm.
constantly asking God, for more, if you will. And I'll share a quick story here about
Yes.
that, because I just recently, getting started and wanting to have the opportunity to be able to run my business on my own and be successful, and asking God, for that growth, and going in, also being a volunteer at church. And I'll never forget that. I mean, God's got a great sense of humor, and that He'll answer these things the way He wants to answer them. But went into a meeting with the parking team at church, because I lead the parking team, another leadership
You
opportunity
like
that I have
parking. You
fun. I
like
do.
parking
Something about
lots.
parking. It really is. Cars and things like that. I don't know what,
Right?
but
Mm-hmm.
I remember looking up, and the staff member had placed my name higher on the org chart and had me above the
Mm.
greeting team as well. And I was like, Derek, I don't understand. He says, yeah, I need you to do a little bit more. I'm like, I just smiled, and he's like, are you angry with me? I said, no, no, no. This is not anger
Yeah.
at all. I said, I just spent some time with God asking Him to enlarge my territory. And I think He's
Yes.
doing it for me in this space. Maybe not the answer that I was looking for, but certainly the answer that He was ready to give me at that point in time. So I just found that kind of
That's
amusing.
an awesome story. We're
Yeah.
praying for him to enlarge our territory, and he moves you up on the parking
Yeah, it
team.
gives me the volunteer. It gives me more volunteer. Right. Exactly.
He's like, let me see how you handle this
Mm-hmm.
one first, buddy, and then I'll give you the
Mm-hmm.
next. What is the prayer of Jabez for the people that
Well, it's in Chronicles, and if I've kind of rewritten it. It says, God, give me more than I need, so that I can be a blessing to the world around me. Use me so that my life might make an eternal impact in the lives of others. Be with me, because what you've called me to is too big for me. And
Yes.
strengthen me, and keep me from every attack of the enemy. That the enemy is there, the spiritual warfare is real. We will
Yes.
be distracted from what the real plan is if we're not
Mm-hmm.
careful. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
it's reading that every day to understand, and just having it there, so that the prayer of Jabez inside the book actually had to do with birth, and that
Mm-hmm.
Jabez was born. His mother had severe pain when he was born, and ultimately he was asking God to keep him from pain along his journey as well.
So good. It's so good. While you were talking, I love how the Spirit just led us there, because you probably weren't planning on talking about that. But for those of you, I just pulled it up, John, while you were talking. I was like, okay, give me like a condensed version. And it is notable because it's a prayer for the desire for blessings, right? There's a
Hmm.
heartfelt desire. It's prayer for expansion of territory, both literally, maybe spiritually as well,
Hmm.
mentally, emotionally, all of it, influence, opportunities, impact. It's a prayer for divine presence and protection. And sometimes rejection is God's protection, right? So it's
Hmm.
a good, and I wanted to double down on what you said, because, we pray one way, but we don't know how he's going to answer. Like his ways are higher than our ways, right? His thoughts are high.
That's right.
He's like, I know what you need when you need it. And then there's a conclusion of like, answered prayer, right? There's a willingness of God to respond to our prayers, and we got to release like, oh, what it gets to look like. So I love that it took us there. I want to include that in the show notes because I think it's such a powerful, and that's a tactical thing that leaders can take. Speak that out, declare it over your business, over your clients, over your finances every day. So I love that you have it taped to your laptop. And I love that
Absolutely.
you recognize that spiritual warfare is real, because I talk to a lot of leaders and organizations who are like, yeah, okay, whatever, just give me the next thing to do. And you're like, there's literally a spiritual block in the
That's
way
right.
right now.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Slow down so that we can go faster. There's no doubt about it. It's funny. I mean, this through line of the shopping cart or the parking team, whatever it is, because I had written this down, Christine. I just smile again. One of the things, in terms of my faith journey, and yeah, we went there. We'll go there first. That's what your
Yep.
podcast is all about. But
Yep.
I said the name of one of my books was going to be "God Found Me in the Checkout Line at the Grocery Store." And that really was. I mean, I was standing there with a West Virginia shirt on. The guy behind me says, "Hey, you from West Virginia?" This was in Indiana. And
Mm-hmm.
he started talking to me. He said, "You guys have a church that you go to?" I said, "No, we don't. And we've been looking for a couple of years. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
We're struggling." He says,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, I just happen to be the pastor of a church down the street. Come and see us this Sunday."
So
And
good.
that absolutely transformed the lives of both me and my wife at the time, and certainly going forward of our families as well. But I guess, yeah, there's something about those shopping carts on parking lots. I don't know how to figure that
He
out.
likes to connect with you
Yeah.
there for some
Yeah.
reason.
Hmm.
Maybe that's when you're most open and willing. He'll meet you where
Maybe.
you're most open and willing. And yes, of course, we went there first, because I think a lot of times we wait for the faith conversation or the prayer conversation to come last, after we talk about all the tactical things, all the strategic things, everything that we're going to do. Then we kind of go, okay, cool. Like, let's insert a little bit of faith, a little bit of, let's sprinkle it with some God salt and hope
Hmm.
that the recipe turns out, instead of realizing like the spirit is the flour to the whole recipe. It's the whole thing. It's like the majority of what goes in there. And then we add these other ingredients. And then, it makes it super successful. So I'm glad that we led with that. So many good things. Okay, let's jump into some of this. One of the things I pulled off of your website, it was one of your recent blogs, I think, or your Champions Brew.
Hmm.
John's got this blog called the Champions Brew, which I think is very witty. What a great name. And well, what is the Champions Brew? I'll let you tell what it is.
Sure. It's a Champions Brew. And again, that's about the witty names, the Uncommon Leader podcast, the Champions
Mm-hmm.
Brew. It's FridayCoffeeGuy.com. And really, it's something that I do on a weekly basis, where those things that I'm reading, watching, listening to, or have learned with clients over the course of the past week, I just put those together in three kind of little stories
Mm,
each Friday, ultimately in a space that folks can read with their first cup of coffee on Friday morning as it comes out. And then I encourage
mm.
folks to, read that obviously and respond to being a part of the communication and chat about it going forward. So it's been a lot of fun for me. Been doing it for about 3 years now, every Friday. And it's something I believe that folks look forward to. Ultimately, it's my
So
goal
good.
to inspire, encourage, and equip folks to do that. So there's some fun little stories in there, but there's also, leadership tips. Again, from what I'm reading, summaries of podcasts of the Uncommon Leader podcast and what I take away from what the guests have to say. So it's been a lot of fun.
I love this. I love it. I love it. I might have to like borrow or adopt this idea, not
Okay.
borrow, multiply it. I'll multiply it with but you guys check it out. It was good. I was going through there, and it's fun for both sides, right? I'm sure it's really fulfilling for you to write it and also for them. And one of the things that I read on there was said, good intentions without discipline lead to excuses, but discipline with intention leads to excellence. Let's dive into that for a second. I know discipline is one of the 7 pillars or steps. I'm not sure if they're pillars or steps for
Yes,
you.
they are.
Both.
We'll call them something. They're 7 something, right? Ultimately.
There's 7 steps. Discipline
Mhm.
is one of them. And I've talked actually quite a bit about discipline lately on the show because I think it's one of those things that can really constrict us and can get really stifling and rigid and inflexible. So we just kind of go the other way. So why don't we talk to us a little bit more about this pillar of discipline? Why it's obviously, what does it look like when it's executed well?
Many things go into that question, Christine. I could take it so many different
Mhm.
directions. One of the things you asked me about was that men's health journey as well.
Yes.
So back in 2017, step one of the 7 Ds is the decision. You got to make a decision to make a change. And ultimately, as leaders, as individuals, as organizations, we work hard to put methodology in place to make improvement to move toward our target, whatever that
Mhm.
target is. It could be weight loss.
Mhm.
It could be
Mhm.
goals that we want to achieve in our business. It could be goals that we want to achieve in our parenting. All those different things. We work really hard. We use a process to in essence, I refer to as rolling a ball up a hill, and
Mhm.
we're pushing that ball. But once we walk away, the risk is if we haven't put the systems and processes and disciplines in place, the ball just rolls back down the hill again. So,
Mm. Great visual.
yo-yoing diets happen all the time. We work really hard to lose weight on a journey, yet when we finally walk away and say we're not on the diet anymore, we get to our goal, we go back to our old habits again.
Mhm.
And so that discipline, that note, like I think we always have good intention, whether it's through New Year's resolutions or setting goals. But fact is, if we just have intentions with regards to what our goals are, all we really have is dreams. What we
Mhm.
really have to do is put those daily, weekly, and
Mhm.
monthly habits and disciplines in place to not only get to where we want to go, but then to stay there and continuously improve. And so that's where the excellence occurs after you put those disciplines in place. So, yes, sometimes that discipline feels rigid at times.
Yeah,
The way I like to look at it is discipline facilitates freedom, though, that if I do those things
totally.
I need to do on a daily basis, I'll be able to do what I want to do with who I want to do when I want to do it because
Mhm.
of putting those disciplines in place, whether that's
Mhm.
scheduling your daily reading of scripture or reading your
Mhm.
leadership book, whether it's scheduling your exercise or prepping your meals on a Sunday night, whatever
Mhm.
those things are. And for me on my health journey, that was very important that I took it slow as we went through that journey and put the disciplines in place, like tracking the food that I ate that I hadn't done before. But tracking that all the time for me is very important. And it's just a growth into the
Mhm.
tracking the macros on a daily basis, or
Mhm.
whether
Are you
that's,
still doing that?
I still do that every day
Okay.
using the Lose It app. It's very important. And I find,
Mhm.
when I use it, I lose it. There's no doubt about it in terms of that app because it keeps me honest. There are things that I do now that
Yeah.
I don't need it as much, based on what I choose to eat, what I choose to buy at the grocery store. But
Yeah.
that's important. And then the second is, gym memberships, great intentions, but if you don't schedule that time into your calendar and stop hitting the snooze button to get there, then you're probably not going to have the impact long term that you need. And that's what I was finding out. So back in 2017, I made the choice that I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. A little bit of a health scare, nothing really
Yeah.
crazy, but that was 80 pounds ago. That was almost
Wow.
270 pounds for me. And I started and went in there, walked into the first trainer that I walked into and said, I need help. Who am
Good.
I to think ego wise I can do this on my own and keep it going? So I got a trainer, and she took me on a journey, and she really took me because she had just about 5 years earlier lost her dad at age 45. He was 45 years old to a
Mm.
massive heart attack. I
Mm.
was 47 years old when I walked in the door with her. So she beat the snot out of me for about 3 years and still stays in touch with me now to make sure that
Beautiful.
I'm staying on that journey. But she, having that coach teaching the proper way to do that, and then putting the disciplines in place, and frankly measuring that, creating a dashboard to measure. So I've got a group of folks accountability wise that we check in when we exercise. We send a hashtag of the number of calories that we
Yeah.
burn to each other so that they know whether or not we're doing it and keeping in touch. Same thing we do with reading.
Yeah.
We send a picture of a book if we've done our daily reading to get it
Mm.
done. So there's accountability that goes with
Mhm.
that as well.
Mhm. So important. I know that Mark says that too, like sweaty selfie or it didn't happen, right?
Mm.
Sweaty selfie.
Yeah.
But it's so true. I used to own a holistic health and performance studio up in Canada, in Toronto. We used to specialize in weight loss for many years. And you're right. Like it's having that structure in place. You'd have
Mhm.
people walk in and boom, 25 pounds gone in 3 months, just like that. And it's like, wow, all it takes is some structure, some accountability, and some support. And whether that's the weight, well, congratulations, 80
Oh, thank
pounds
you.
is no small feat. Okay, 80 pounds, like hello, and to keep it off. Losing weight is easy. Keeping it off is another thing,
That's right.
right? Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
starting to work out, easy. It's easy. I mean, even like 75 hard and all this stuff. You see people do it, but then the minute that last day is over,
Day
boom,
76. Yeah. We
right?
go out and eat and drink
Party.
and yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And that's what I mean. That ball rolling up the hill is very important, but those disciplines are the wedge that keeps it from rolling back downhill. So when you do walk away, when you do travel, you've got
Yeah.
those disciplines in place
Yeah.
that keep you from allowing that to roll back again.
Yeah. It's the infrastructure, it's the character, it's keeping the promises to
Mhm.
yourself. I mean, it does so much for your confidence. Okay, let's talk about the decision, step one, though, because this is such a simple thing, being decisive, and it's so underrated.
Absolutely.
How much time do people spend straddling two worlds and indecision? What is the cost? Like, talk to us about that. Like, because I get a lot of resistance on this one, fully making the decision to commit to something sometimes and fear of what people will say, what people, will think. And I'm thinking as I'm talking to you specifically around like C suite executives who have to make some decisions to turn the ship around. What are some, I want to ask you even more specific questions. What do you notice are some of the most common, maybe if that's the right way, decisions that you see need to start getting made at that level? Is there a commonality that you're seeing? Are there common themes or threads?
Well, the spirit of these seven, and starting off with that D, is ultimately, and you mentioned this in the beginning, is underperformance in
Mm-hmm.
such a way that, again, it might, these seven steps, while they work in turnaround, where I really try to thrive and work with folks is that they've become uh, a little bit complacent in where they
Mm-hmm.
are and that they're performing okay. Their health is kind of okay. Yeah, I feel pretty good. But it's not a journey of settling and staying there in a status quo. Back to the faith point. We are to be disciples. We are to go forward and make believers of the nation, all nations, right? And that doesn't mean we get to stop at a certain point and we just cruise with
Yeah.
where we are. We should always be looking to improve. So that decision ultimately is one that an individual has to make. That I have a healthy discontent most of the time with the status quo. And I say most of the time because there might be conditions that keep you where you are, but control what we can control. And I talk about this one is that, we have to be willing to change, because the pain of change going through these seven steps has to be less than the pain of remaining the same, if you
Yeah.
will. Like,
Yeah.
because regret comes into play. If we stay the
Mm-hmm.
same, we don't grow. And so we have to overcome that. You have individuals, Simon Sinek talks about understand your why, or
Yeah.
Ben Newman talks about your burn. Well, biblically, John 3:16 is one of the most powerful statements when it comes to understanding your why, that it is. I mean, God so loved the world as an opportunity that he made a decision and he sent his only son, and he did it why? So that he did it for us. If we
Yeah.
believe that we would not perish, we would have eternal life. There's no
Mm-hmm.
better statement, if you will, in terms
Yeah.
of that decision that has to be made for us. While it may not have to be that serious that we send our only son, Abraham had made that decision already, but he didn't have to, thankfully. The the idea behind being just being uncomfortable, if we're too comfortable, is really powerful. So I think
Yes.
you're right. I mean, you talk about some of the barriers with folks. Again, I think it's
Be-
that feeling of we're just doing okay, and I don't
Yeah.
need to get any better. And if I can't engage the individual to say I'm tired of being where I am and I want to grow, then it's probably not the right path to go on, because
Yeah.
the change process is not easy.
I
It really isn't.
agree a thousand percent. Exactly what you said. Because often these leaders are at the place. Look, I make good money. Like I have a good life. I got
Mhm.
houses. I got cars. I got boats. I got like what? Why rock the boat in a way? Even though the boat's kind of rowing in the wrong direction, you're losing the fire for life. And that's what I was curious is like, what's your approach, or how do you get those guys to kind of wake up? Right. I mean, you obviously addressed a couple things, which I think is really important, is realizing like, do you there's nothing more expensive than the cost of regret. Number one, right?
Hmm.
Do you want to be sitting back and meet that version? What do they say? Like the definition of hell is actually meeting the future version of who you should have been
Oh,
or
right.
called to be, and knowing that you settled for less, and being uncomfortable with feeling too comfortable.
Hmm.
I love that you said that. But are there any specific exercises, or if somebody's listening, they're like, man, I know I'm there. I'm a little too, I'm comfortable. I'm cushy where I'm at. I'm losing my mojo. I'm probably losing my fire, but I don't like, it's not bad, you
Well,
know?
that's the thing. I mean, that's the difference in common and uncommon, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But the exercise that I use, and I love the question because it is the greatest story ever told. It's how I
Yeah.
refer to it as the greatest story ever told. Oftentimes, individuals will be sitting in rooms and they'll be asked by someone at the front of the room to say, "Can you think of or write down the name of 5 individuals who have made a positive impact on your life?"
Mm, mm,
And if someone in your life writes your name on their list, to me, that's the greatest story ever told.
mm,
And that's where we want to leave. And so the challenge I often leave leaders with at the end is who's going to write their name on that list. And if they want individuals, they want to have that eternal impact, that kingdom impact with the work that they do. They want to make a difference in the lives of others. They've got to be very intentional, and they are not going to do it by relaxing and being okay with where they are. They're
yeah.
going to have to be
So
very
good.
intentional with the disciplines and the work that's going to be required to make the impact that they want to make.
I love that. And really, that's a decision. Like, do I want to be that kind of man or woman that is on
Mhm.
that list, that is making that level of kingdom impact? Because that's decision number one,
That's right. That's
right?
the decision that has to be
That
made.
is the
Yeah,
decision, because otherwise we're just pretending.
right.
And I know it probably drives you nuts, and it drives me nuts sometimes to get on the call with someone that just shows up and pretends. And so often the question is like, what do you actually want out of this process? Do
That's
you
well, you
actually?
just said that I bottom line it with the individuals and use a framework for them to make that declarative statement. I
Yeah.
want, therefore I must, so
Mm.
that this occurs. Those three
Say,
sentences have to be completed. What do they want? Therefore they must. I must change. I must get better. And I pull that therefore out of a biblical principle as well. Whenever I
mm-hmm.
was told as a young student inside the Bible that anytime you see the word therefore in the
Yeah.
Bible, pay attention because there's a reason it's therefore,
Yes.
and you got to wait for what's coming after it. But the so that frankly comes from again John 3:16. Certainly
Yes.
Paul, who wrote 13 books in the New Testament, he loved to give what people need to do, but he always told them why, so
Mm,
that this occurs.
mhm,
Ephesians
mm,
6, in terms of the full armor of
mhm,
God, he talks about
mhm.
you need all these tools so that you can stand firm when the evil one
Yes,
arrives. It's a very simple framework, very
it is.
profound, but one that can lead them to uncommon impact. Absolutely.
You guys, these are so powerful. These simple tools are so powerful. A statement, a declarative statement. I was listening to something with Bill Johnson the other day. If you guys don't know who he is, he's an awesome guy too. Great pastor. He was talking about authority, spiritual power, and the authority that we've been given. And every time you speak something and you declare it, you're taking authority over that situation, and you're letting the power of the Holy Spirit flow through you and start to move. It's God's power that actually mobilizes situations, but it's our declaration that comes out of our mouth. So, John, you just gave us a beautiful framework of like, I want, get in this decision. What is it that you want? Therefore, what is it that you must? So that, and if that so that doesn't light a fire in your heart, in your spirit, it doesn't start to move you, it's the wrong. So what? If the so what is so I can retire and play golf, I mean, that's fine. But like, is that going to really be like, yes, well done? I
Right.
feel amazing. Like, it's got to ignite something. Okay, as we start to bring it, that was really good. I'm so glad we went there. And
Well, I just one more thing on that too, Christine.
yes,
That's so that to your point, at the fire is like there's something that's got to get you out of the bed and to not hit that snooze button at whatever time it is you need to get up to make your disciplines and get those started. Your reading, your hydration, your exercise, your
yes,
prep for the day. Something's got to get you out and have both feet hit the floor. And so it's got to be powerful. It's got to be big.
yeah. And if it's not anymore, then maybe you're being called into a new season.
That's right.
I love that, going back to the COVID thing. Like, that was a launching pad for you. to go and say, yes, I'm doing this. We're doing a new thing. We're not doing that old thing. I still see people wanting to get back to the way things were and complaining and like the economy or this and the pandemic. And it's like, look, it's a new door. It's a new opportunity. Where is God leading you now? And it was the same actually for me. I closed a business that I had had for 10 years. And that was really a doorway. I felt like, there was a lot of things that I got very angry about that were happening during that time. And at the same time, I realized it was one of the greatest gifts and blessings possible, right? Okay, so
Absolutely.
as we bring it in for a landing, I mean, I think we talked about those two. We talked about two out of the seven: decisiveness, discipline. Is there anything else we want to discuss around these steps? Do you want to go through them real quick, or do people need to like go to your website to? Do you want to just run us through the steps, or what? What are you
Yeah,
feeling
we
over
can. I
there?
mean, look, there's. We could talk for hours. I could talk
I
for
know.
hours on those
I
different
know.
7 steps as they go forward. That decision is so critical. Once you make that decision, then you do a diagnostic. Okay, where are you today? Where do you want to go, and how big is that gap?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so understanding that where that gap is will drive you to make the change that you need to. Third step is you create a dashboard. Ultimately, I believe what gets measured gets managed, and what
Mm-hmm.
doesn't get measured gets accepted, and it
Mm.
just kind of sits there. So you create a
So good.
dashboard for helping you get to where you want to go. And then the fourth step is to do the design that you need to do. So let's start to implement some of those disciplines that you need. Think about what you need to do. If it is something that you're going to adjust your health, chances are you're probably not going to do that. I need to go out and get a trainer, or I need to go out and get a gym membership, or I need to go out and buy shoes. Whatever it is, it can be that simple or that difficult to get going. That's the design in terms
Mm-hmm.
of putting the program in place. And
Mm-hmm.
then that 50 we talked about are the disciplines. Look, one of the most important steps is the sixth step as well, is dwell. That's reflection.
Yes. Come on.
Ultimately, purposeful reflection produces purposeful action, and that's really what we. So, as you look at how you're doing with implementing your decisions on a regular basis, you should be saying what's going well and what isn't going well. What do I need to keep doing, start doing, and stop doing
Mm-hmm.
to make changes, to course correct, to get me going
Mm-hmm.
back through. And then the last step, the seventh step, we think once we get to the finish line that we're done, and the fact is we've just begun. We need to go through it
Doing
again.
it.
We need to review our why and say, is it really
Mm-hmm.
still moving me forward? Is it what's going to have me achieve? Well done, good and faithful student, that we're being
Yes.
faithful stewards of the gifts that we've been given, whether it's our money or time or our talents, whatever those things are. Make sure the why still lights a fire in between us, and go through those 7 steps again. So it's not when you get there at the end, it's a cycle. Those 7 steps move around in a circle and are ever
Mm-hmm.
changing. So absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that's
So
really
good.
cool, and I think it is that why that we talked about. I've heard Ben Newman talk about this in his coaching style, is that we get seduced by success. We get to a
Yeah.
certain point where we think we're winning, and we relax and end up in this cycle of sitting still and wonder 6, 9, 12 months from that time and say, how did I put this weight back on again? Or how did my
Yes.
business stagnate and start to fall off again? Because we think we got it in, and we don't have the systems and processes that we need to lead to
So
kingdom
true.
impact.
So true. I've been there way too many more times than I would like to admit.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark and I've been there. It's a constant conversation of ours too. Where are we getting complacent? Where do we not have systems? Uh, it's good.
Well, I
You
so
mentioned,
appreciate watching yours and Mark's story as well. It's really powerful to think about how those 7 steps can work in a marriage, in
totally.
relationships. We started with relationships and what that
Yeah.
means. What is it that with our marriage that we want to create? What's that statement
Yes.
that we have that's going to lead us through that? Okay, let's keep score and let's understand what we need to design to make sure that it stays successful. Absolutely, and continues to
Mm-hmm.
grow.
And then once you design it, you've got to deploy it. I'm just typing that
Right.
out here because I wanted to make sure we got it. That means you got to do. Faith without works is dead.
Yes,
Intention without action is dreaming. And, I love to dream, but you're right. You need to get the people around you. I want to make sure that we double down on that, whether you get a great coach, a mentor, an accountability group. Make sure that you choose your circle wisely because
that's right.
the right people that are your accountability group could be like, screw it, let's just go off this
Hmm.
weekend and we'll start again
Yeah.
on Monday. Or they can be the people that call you back and go, oh, remember, we're not going that way. Like, where's your sweaty selfie? Where's your book picture? And it's so important. And these are the simple things that keep us in the rails. It's like those
Yeah.
bumpers, but that keep us heading in that same direction. So, John, as we wrap up, what are you excited about right now? What are you working on that's exciting you? Do you have any major projects in the works, or what are you leaning into?
Well, so for me, it's an understanding. And again, we have a similar connection with the brand builders group and understanding what's happening there. But I want to get my story that we've
Mm-hmm.
talked about today into more
Mm-hmm.
people's hands and
Yeah.
understand. I want to make a difference with people who want to make
Mm-hmm.
a difference. So for me, it's overcoming some past, probably internal critics and other things that
Yes.
I've had to go through to become ultimately a speaker, to be in front of a podcast on a camera like this, or be in front of a larger group of people to share that story and really share what I believe are the powerful steps. You think about that from an accountability and folks holding you accountable. Jim Rohn was right in that group. He said, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. And one of the things that I've done working with that group of accountability folks, we use the hashtag raise the average. Because if we're
Mm.
walking into a room and we're kind of, excuse me, the smartest person in the room, it's not really that helpful for us in terms of the average going around the room. So we should always be thinking about when we walk into a room with others, are we raising the average in the room or are we bringing it down? We should always strive
Mm.
to grow. We should always strive to be around people who challenge us, who grow us. And that's why I'll probably always have a coach myself. The coach needs a
Always
coach
same.
and going forward. And I think I'm probably, you're ahead of this journey on the book side, but I see a book or two in my future that's probably later in 2025 or 2026 come along as well.
Yeah, for sure. I do
Mhm.
too. Speak that over you right now. We just prophesy. We already see that book in the hands of people, and it is
Right.
flying. And it's funny because we're doing these podcasts, and sometimes we don't see it's when we're not on this big stage, but realize like you can reach a lot of people through the
Yes.
airwaves. We're doing it
Mhm.
different. We're in a new era. The way that people are getting touched is different. It's still awesome to speak on stages, but your podcast is great. It's really good. You're really good at interviewing people. You're so thoughtful. You're so intentional. You could tell that you prepare. Preparation precedes performance. So definitely, you've had some great interviews. I was listening to one this morning before we jumped on. So I'm excited to actually listen to more and maybe even connect with some of the people that you've interviewed. But that's it. Make more connections, get to know people. I love that you're leaning in and saying, yes, I got to get a coach all the time. Always have a coach, always have a mentor
Mhm.
so that we can mentor others. I mean, otherwise we stop growing and then, you know, the
Hence,
people that
growing champions. That's the
growing
goal in terms of
champions.
growing others, growing yourself so that you can grow others. Absolutely.
Totally. This was actually the first time Mark and I hired a coach together.
Hmm.
We both joined a mastermind recently and we said, okay, we're not going to get another individual coach. The next one we do, we're going to do that as a couple. And it's been a game changer, even in our marriage. We had a lot of great practices in place, but we only know what we know, right? And then you bring
That's
in
right.
that outside perspective. And we got mentorship from another couple, and it was like, whoa, okay, you guys like they've gone before us, right? So they're
Hmm.
paving the way. John, if you could implant, this is my last question. If you could implant a chip into these people's brains listening today and effective immediately, this would be their new operating system. What is the one thought, mental program you want them to take away? It's like, this is the way they would think.
Well, we touched on this, and I had somebody tell me when I said this to them before. They said, "Well, that's the name of your book." I said, "Well, thank you," because I hadn't really thought about this. But I believe the statement that I made is that excellence only happens on purpose.
Mm,
Okay, and it's back to that intentionality we must have to move forward. If we're going to achieve excellence, we have to do that intentionally. We have to do that on purpose. We've got to have a clear why, because it doesn't just happen via osmosis. It doesn't have to be there. So we've got to do. Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's not
sprinkle some
auto
fairy dust on
right
there.
auto magical or whatever it is.
Right.
But that excellence is something that doesn't occur for everyone, and that's not a shot. Again, sometimes folks are okay, kind of retiring and playing golf, but for those who want to grow more, those who are on that continuous improvement journey, know that it doesn't happen by accident. You've got to be intentional. You got to do it on purpose, and find someone who can do that. So that's what I'd leave you with.
Excellence happens on purpose. drop it in, receive it, embody it, declare it, and move with it. John, thank you for being on the show today. It was awesome having you here.
Christine, I throw it back at you. You're a great interviewer as well. I have appreciated the opportunity, and yeah, I do look forward to share connection to see how we can help each other grow going
For
forward.
sure. For sure. Okay, guys. Wow, it was 44:44 right when I wrapped that up. But listen, this was a great show. There was so many gold nuggets. I'm going to drop some of them in the show notes. We're going to drop links of how you can connect to John. Actually, I'm going to drop the links below. But John, what is the best way for people to connect with you?
Sure, I appreciate the opportunity. CoachJohnGallagher.com. And if you're interested in having a chat with me, there's a link there to sign up for a free coaching call as well. So I'd be happy to help you out.
Yeah. By the way, I love that page. I have it up here and I'm like, Ani, I love this. It's so great. Like really well laid out. I could tell that you have implemented the excellent coaching and mentorship of brand builders. Okay, you guys, thank you for being here with us today. As always, if you like the show, hit forward, share this with somebody. Think about who's in your contact list that needs to hear this message. Forward this. This is how we spread it. This is how we share the good news. And if you guys have not already, pre-order the book, Drop the Armor. Make sure you get it. I'm giving away the first 2 chapters of the book right now for free. We've got some amazing bonuses that come in the bundle valued at over $200. It is an awesome book. We're going to drop all the links to everything we discussed today, the John Maxwell books, John Gallagher's link, as well as my upcoming book. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you in the next episode.